Welcome to Tribe Talk. If you're a parent who wants to use trauma-informed care, then today's podcast is for you. You're here with Laura Neal.
I'm Rachel Evans.
And today we're going to be talking about how you can help your child to manage anger.
Have you ever wondered why your child has just become extremely angry after something that has happened, which seems quite small? So you've turned the Xbox off, or asked them to put their shoes away, or asked them to come downstairs for a snack, and then World War III erupts, and you're left wondering what has just happened. So today's episode, we're going to be talking about how we can help your child manage anger.
So Rachel, I think this can be such a difficult thing for parents to deal with. I know myself as a parent, there have been times when one of my children has suddenly become really angry and you just don't know what's going on and you think, what the heck is going on behind this? And it can, I think there's different ways that presents with different children, but it can just be them pushing back at you, or it could result in them hitting out or throwing or punching something. You just don't know where it's going to go. And as a parent, you're left there thinking, what the heck just happened? Because it doesn't seem to be related to what we were talking about or what I asked them to do.
No, because that might seem quite small to you, what you just asked them to do. And then you're just met with what looks like anger. And that's really exhausting for parents, especially if you're dealing with these, let's just call them anger outbursts, multiple times a day. And you mentioned like physical behaviours as well, so hitting out, kicking, destroying some of the household items, property destruction. That is exhausting to deal with, and especially if it's happening time and time again, like I said, multiple times a day. When is the time to think about what I'm going to do next? Because you're in firefighting mode, what it feels like the majority of the time.
Yeah, and I think it's worth remembering as well that as a parent, it's not to do with you in this situation, it's to do with something else, and we'll get into what that might be in a moment, but you can very much feel to blame. You can start to see things escalating at times as well, and it happens once and then it's twice and then it's three times, and you start thinking, well, what's going on? Because we've gone from a really calm household to a household that is no longer calm at all, and things just seem to be getting worse, and like you said, don't have time to take a breath and think, well, what do I do about this? And knowing that isn't always related to something that you've done. I know from my own household that my children can, one thing can lead to another thing and another thing, and that is quite a typical experience for children, is one thing leads to something else and something else, and it just escalates then over time, and sometimes you don't even realise, well, why is this happening?
I think the most hurtful thing for parents, from some of my discussions in consultations, it's when they've planned something that they think is really nice, or they go in on a day trip, and it's cost a lot of money, a lot of planning has gone into it, and then we get this response from children, and then it can absolutely feel, for us as parents, personal. We've done this, we've spent a lot of money, we've planned all this, and it hasn't gone to plan because my child has been really angry. And I think it's really hard. I'm going to say it for the podcast. I think this would definitely cross people's minds. Like, I've done this for you, and why have you spoiled it?
Yeah.
I think that's
language that parents use, even if it's talking to themselves. Like they've spoiled it,
Yeah, you spoiled the day that I planned, and I think that's what's really hurtful. And I think everything that you just described as well, Laura, but when these behaviours happen time and time again, like parents are met with anger time and time again, it's really difficult not to take lots of what they're seeing personally.
Yeah, 100%, and that can be really hard. And I think if you're a parent listening to this whose child is frequently having these anger outbursts, or if you're a parent listening whose child has only just started having anger outbursts and you want to know what to do, that's what we're going to go into now. But both of those situations, I think there's definitely things that you can do and definitely things you can do to help.
Yeah.
Rachel, what we often see is big behaviours on the surface. So we might see these anger outbursts, this shouting at you as a parent, tantruming, running away, slamming doors, throwing items, can escalate into punching sometimes, or siblings are a good target usually, aren't they, if there's an outburst going on. But that's what we see on the surface. What might be going on underneath?
Yeah, I think this is so common, isn't it? Where there could be like a whole host of emotions, feelings that are going on beneath that behaviour, but we're just seeing anger. So for some children, it could be shame about a behaviour and action that they've engaged in previously. Could be fear of something, some anxiety that they might be feeling, and then that's kind of directed at other people, like to other people in the home, to their parents, or to siblings. So as parents, we're getting the aftermath of like an emotion that they might be feeling that isn't anger at all, but they're just feeling something very different inside and struggling to know how to communicate or cope with that. Yeah,
and I think those things that they're struggling with, they don't have to have happened recently, and they can be what we call, I guess, slow burn things as well. Yeah. So one of the things that we're dealing with in my household at the moment is exam stress. Yeah. Now that exam stress has been there for the past 2 months, but it's more of that slow burn, as it's continuously there, and all of a sudden you get this big outburst because of the anxiety over exams, but that comes out not as anxiety over exams. It comes out as, I hate you, why have you made me make my bed, or why have you made me get up this early this morning, slamming doors and just getting very irritated. Nothing, so it's not, on the surface, it's not connected, but one is fueling the other.
Yeah, I think you've explained that really well, because it's like that small thing that they would do every single day, maybe without you asking, make your bed, just do something that's really small. But it's like all that stuff that's going on underneath with like maybe the anxiety around, I've got this exam to sit, I haven't done as much revision as I would have wanted, this is not the topic that I'm particularly strongest at. And it's like all these thoughts and emotions that's building up. You then ask a simple question, and then you're met with, I hate you. You're not my favourite person right now. And it's like, whoa, where has that come from?
Or just like the cold stare.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've got teenagers, so the cold stare comes out quite often.
But this happens in little ones as well, where a little bit different, isn't it? Where they might not be understanding of some of those complex emotions that they might be experiencing, and then don't have the language to be able to communicate to you what they might be feeling in that moment.
Yeah. So I think our message from that is to always think about what is going on underneath. And I used exam stress as an example, but it could really be anything. It could be friendship difficulties in school. It could be worry over an activity that they're going to do. So you mentioned like a nice trip. And we do often see that these bigger outbursts, they go alongside things like trips or holidays away. Anxiety over that, anxiety over change, big anxiety a lot of young people have around going through airports. So then you get these big outbursts in an airport where you're actually going on a really nice family holiday, and it's quite difficult to understand why that's happening. So always think about what is underneath, and it could be something that when we start to peel back the layers, we find that it's actually pretty obvious, but it could be something that is not so obvious, and we have to dig a little bit deeper to find the answer. And that's what trauma-informed parenting is really all about, is thinking about what is fueling what we're seeing. Yeah,
absolutely. And you make a good point about there are points throughout the year that are particularly difficult for children. So you mentioned about exams and holidays. Like that is definitely on parents' minds right now. If you booked a family trip and you're planning that, I think that's stressful anyway, going on a family holiday, trying to organise everybody. But soon we'll be at a time where children are going back to school after the 6 weeks holidays, and then we've got Halloween, and then we've got Christmas. Like, they're big events that happen throughout the year, and we're constantly thinking about, you know, as practitioners, supporting parents with supporting their own children when they're managing, to help them manage anger outbursts. We're constantly thinking about these times throughout the year, which we know are particularly difficult for our children. Because they increase the kind of likelihood that these difficulties crop up for our children.
So we've talked about why these anger outbursts might happen. Let's have a look at what doesn't help in situations like this. So what would you say, Rachel? What not to do? What doesn't help?
Yeah. Well, the first thing is kind of meeting them at that anger. I think that's very easy for parents to do. Become like frustrated, maybe lose patience, especially, like we said, if you're dealing with multiple behaviours in a day, and you're exhausted yourself internally, like, why is this happening? So trying to like take a step back. I think we give that advice all of the time, don't we? Just like take a mental step back, take a deep breath, and it's like, okay, now I'm composed to be able to manage this. So trying not to meet them in the chaos that's happening. I think that is the first thing. Also, just trying to avoid questioning, lots of language around that time, like do this instead, trying to lecture them. We just need to be there as a person to support, rather than trying to problem solve and get them to problem solve in the moment, because they're not in a place to be able to problem solve. They just need to like sit with that emotion, deal with it, and then we can talk about that after. So trying to limit your language is important as well, I would say.
Yeah.
And not asking lots of questions and trying to get them to problem solve, because they're not in a place to be able to problem solve.
Yeah, so not trying to explain too much, not trying to negotiate, just limit the amount of language. And one thing we would say is hold a boundary in place. If you put a boundary in, then again, don't negotiate, hold that boundary where it should be. Don't make it a stronger boundary, but hold that boundary where it is.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so if it's actually, no, it's time to come off the Xbox, it's time to come off the Xbox. If it's bath time, it's bath time, and we're following through. Absolutely. Now, you can, at a different point, take a step back and think, okay, is there a different way that we need to deal with this in the future? But in that moment, as soon as you start negotiating, that is what your child is going to expect the next time that you're putting that boundary in, and the next time, and all of a sudden you realise that bedtime has moved from 7 p.m. till 11 p.m. because you've continuously negotiated that boundary.
Yeah, that's such a good bit of advice, because I think it's so easy.
Yeah.
We talk about it all the time, don't we, that children kind of change our behaviour all the time, and then our behaviour kind of drifts. So like you said, we have we said we want to start bedtime at 8, but now it's becoming 7, now it's becoming 8, because we've negotiated around Xbox or that one more snack, or they can come downstairs for 5 more minutes of TV time. So yeah, absolutely try to avoid negotiating, and have confidence in yourself that this is the expectation, this is the boundary that I've set, and I'm confident enough to help you manage those feelings that you're experiencing right now, but I'm not going to change my stance, because it's important that you go to bed on time.
Yeah. So Rachel, what should parents do? Could you give us a step-by-step rundown of what they can do to be able to help their child?
Yeah, so if, say my child was in front of me displaying feelings of anger, and that's what I'm being met with, first thing I would do is, like I said, is to make sure that I'm regulated myself. So taking that mental step back and a deep breath. Okay, I can handle this now, and I can support them through that. Like I said previously, I'd be limiting my language and just it's explaining to them what I expect them to do in that moment. Like you said as well, Laura, like there might be a boundary that I'm going to hold, and just reminding them of those expectations, but with very limited language. So if we just use your example of bedtime, I might just say, bedtime's at 7, we need to go to bed. So once you're ready to go to bed, I can help you with that. So you know, you're just explaining to them what that expectation is. And then you might want to be naming as well what's kind of going on for them. So explain to them, I can see that you're angry right now because you're shouting at me. Once we can use our quiet voices or calm voices, then I can help you. So it's almost like, you know, I really want to help you with this, but I can't. Because you're meeting me with this anger. Like, we've got to engage in some appropriate behaviours first before we can then move to the next step. And that may take a little bit of time, especially for some of our children, to help them to calm down, depending on how long a behaviour has been happening for. But it just explains some very simple language, like what we expect, what the boundary is, and that we really want to help. And then I just use that analogy of like riding the wave, and that's okay. Like, that's how behaviour works. Like, we have to ride that wave for a little bit of time, but then once we start seeing some of the appropriate behaviours that we want to see, you can see them starting to calm down. That's our point of entry then to help support, and then, like I said, get them to bed and praise them for that. I was really proud that you just listened. And we're able to go to bed, and we can have that story that you wanted now. So it's like finding those times where you can acknowledge when they are doing the right thing as well.
Yeah, so what about safety, Rachel? When so if a child is angry, if they're angry and shouting, then we're fine. But if they're throwing items, if they start hitting and kicking, what about everyone else in the family and their safety and the child's safety as well? What would you recommend?
Yeah, depending on that behaviour, you would want to make things as safe as possible. So that might be removing some items that they might be throwing or destroying within the home. Or it could be separating your other children from that room, maybe, you know, sending them upstairs, or just creating that distance, especially if they're engaging in like any property destruction or physical aggression. Making sure that everybody is safe first is really important, and then you're able to follow those steps then.
Yeah. Rachel, we've got a question from a parent, and they ask, my child started getting angry a couple of months ago, and they seem to just be getting more and more angry all the time. So every time that the parent asks them to do something, or something happens that they don't like, they're getting angry and they're shouting and they're throwing items, and this parent feels that they just don't know what to do. So where would you suggest that they start?
Yeah, so they've said that things are getting worse and worse. I think we just need to really understand where that behaviour is coming from. Like you said at the beginning of the podcast, like understanding more about the why behind that behaviour. So why are they engaging in anger? Are there any particular triggers that are problematic for them, where we can start to pick up on some patterns to understand the child's anger a little bit more. And then we can start to, because right now I assume the parent is probably feeling in firefighting mode, where they are just trying to put out the fires, put out those behaviours as they're happening. But then we can move more towards more proactive strategies where we're supporting a child. We can preempt. So say, for example, we can preempt that when a transition is coming up, I know this is a likely time that my child's going to become angry. This is what I need to do instead. So we can more proactively preempt what might be causing the anger, and then develop some strategies to support. Yeah. But it's only when we know what's actually going on underneath that behaviour we can we can develop something for that child.
So think about what's underneath, like where is this coming from? Because it's probably not coming from the demand that's been placed on the child or the question that they've been asked. It's coming from something else.
It could be anything, right?
Yeah.
You know, we could have, you know, two parents that we're providing consultations to, and a child, both children are angry, but for very different reasons. So it's understanding what is it specific to that child that is causing that emotion.
Yeah. Some key takeaways from today's podcast. If you're dealing with anger from your child, you're continuously seeing these anger outbursts, then think about what's underneath that behaviour. This is what trauma-informed parenting is about, what's under the behaviour that we're seeing and could be fueling that anger. If we can work that out, then we can really understand how we can help our children.
So thank you for joining Tribe Talk today. If you want to know more information about trauma-informed parenting, then subscribe to Tribe Talk.